All right. So the reason for meeting tonight is to launch the Second Story Church. I know that I geek out about this stuff because I'm a pastor, so of course I geek out about it, right? But you guys, this is extremely exciting. It means that we've done a lot of things right to get to this point in the journey. So what we're doing tonight is we are launching a kind of mini campaign, a 6-month capital campaign. Now, if you've ever been in a church where they've launched a capital campaign before, a lot of times it is a campaign that, it can last like 2 years or 3 years, where the church is maybe doing a special building project or a special outreach project or something like that, where they're asking you to go above and beyond your normal tithe, your normal giving, in like a 3-year commitment. We're just doing 6 months to start out. So I'll explain what that is and why that is as we get going. But just kind of a brief summary of what are we doing here tonight. Number one, why are we meeting tonight? I'm not going to lie to you guys. We are here to raise money to plant a church. And I think it's best if we just say it and own it and punch it in the face as we get going, because there is no getting around this. There is no sort of sugarcoating it. There isn't like any amount of like pastorly, sugar that I can put on this for you that is gonna, change the fact that you guys, we're here to raise money to plant a church. It takes a lot of things to plant a church. One of the things it takes is capital. It takes an investment of financial resources. That's the purpose of us being here tonight. And I don't know about you, but I'm actually excited about that. I hope that you're as excited about it as I am. Maybe you will be by the end if you aren't right now. Maybe you're dialing in like, I thought they said it was a church meeting and now they're just asking for money. Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So we're just launching out into this thing as best we can. And before you kind of mentally dial out, let me explain to you why that's happening. So tonight's agenda, we've already said a prayer and said welcome to everybody. I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit just for a real brief time here about how Second Story is different than a lot of church plants and why we're needing to do this campaign. Like, what is this all about? Why wasn't this thought through? Let me have a chance to explain that to you. After that, Tabby is going to get on board here, and she is going to talk about our goals and what we're asking of you very specifically. She's going to talk numbers and structure, that kind of a thing. And then I'm going to end this thing real briefly with just kind of on a personal note for me about what's your why. So that's kind of where we're headed this evening. So let me kick it off for you guys by talking just a little bit. By the way, does everyone like my shirt? Can you see my shirt? I don't know if you can see my shirt. This is my Second Story shirt that I was given as a gift at church last weekend. This shirt is the reason for the capital campaign. Y'all, we need better merch. This isn't okay. Like this is low buck right here. We need to figure this out. I appreciate it, Jess, but
wow, Jess, were you offended? Wow.
I think pretty much everything within a 5-foot radius of me is covered in glitter right now.
Yeah.
So it's probably best that I'm in my basement by myself. But no, I love this shirt. I love this shirt, and I love the heart behind it, because it's two things. Number one, it's a reminder of maybe some of the reasons we're doing what we're doing tonight, but it's also a reminder of some of the heart behind what we're doing tonight. And I'll give you 10 points for that one, Jess. So I appreciate that. So anyway, this is all where we're headed tonight. Let's get started and talk about how is Second Story Church different than most church plants. Well, here's the thing, you guys. I've actually planted a church before. It was called Evergreen Community Church. It was in Pine City, Minnesota. And it was planted the way that most organic church plants are planted. And the reason I call it an organic church plant is because in the church world, when a church reproduces or when a new church is started, we call it church multiplication. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. One is to do kind of what we're doing or what other church plants like I did at Evergreen or otherwise are doing. And that is that you're just starting a brand new church. Other churches would do things like we were a part of at Free Grace United, where you are a part of a larger church. You're one location of a church that's comprised of many locations, or you're one campus of a larger church. And there's different ways and different models of doing that. We're an organic church plant, which means we're kind of starting from the ground up. We're not a part of a larger body anymore. And in most cases, you guys, what that means is that there's a process for planting the church. Okay. The process is real simple. Well, it's not real simple, but it's not overly complicated. You're raising funds. And as you're raising funds and doing a giant capital campaign, you're recruiting people as you go, and you're buying equipment as the money comes in. And then you have, you've got the equipment and you've got the stuff and you've signed contracts for a place to meet. And then you have a soft launch, which means that you're meeting together, but you're not totally advertising it yet. I mean, certainly people can come, but you haven't had your grand opening yet. And then there is a point in time at which you have your giant grand opening. That's the general process for most organic church plants. Now, the business side of that, okay, financially speaking, is that the hope in this model is that you raise a large enough sum of money up front to take care of a lot of the really big expenses that there are involved with starting a church. And then after your grand opening, you retain enough people to cash flow this thing. In other words, in every ministry, just like every other business, or you need enough money coming in relation to the money that's going out to stay afloat, to keep the doors open. So you don't really know in an organic church plant, like, what's our cash flow going to be? You're kind of really concentrating on that big, heavy front end number of how much can we raise to get the place and get the equipment and get the stuff that we need. And then hopefully that's enough to launch us out. In my first church at Evergreen, we raised $100,000. We actually raised over $120,000 inside of about 6 months. And along the way, I recruited people to come with me. Some people who are on this meeting here tonight were a part of that. And then, that's just what we did. The goal, if I could use a metaphor here, is that it's a gradual buildup to the airplane taking off. And then you punch it at the end, just like an airplane taking off, hit that accelerator. And the goal is to have a smooth takeoff and an ascent to sort of a cruising altitude. That's the goal of an organic church plant. And hopefully you've got enough people on the plane to keep it going once you launch. That's how it works. That's not how Second Story works. Second Story is a different story. So how is Second Story different than most church plants? Well, in our church, as you guys know, we aren't an airplane on the ground waiting for takeoff. We are an airplane already in flight. So you guys, we were a small church already existing, that we had the backing of another church that gave us equipment and finances and met all of our practical needs. And now we're in the process of becoming a new church, literally within a matter of 1 to 2 months. So it's a very different thing that we are doing, similar in some respects in that we're a new church, but the order of operations has been kind of a little bit backwards for us. So financially speaking, for us, it's good news, bad news. We have something that most church plants don't at this point: cash flow. Now, we don't have a lot of cash flow, but we've got some cash flow. And the cool part about that, you guys, is that we already know what we have to work with. So that helps us make really wise decisions about what to commit to, what not to commit to, how we can handle our ministry, how we shouldn't handle our ministry, locations, business practices, all that kind of stuff. If you would have told me when I planted Evergreen, I would have killed for that information, to be able to know how we're going to be operating from a financial perspective after launch, prior to launch. That's gold. I would have loved that. So we have something that most church plants don't, but we also lack something that a lot of church plants do. Most church plants have something that we need, and that's the large amount of reserves up front to buy equipment and meet practical needs. Okay. So our goal is to obtain the parts and pieces to rebuild the airplane in flight without losing too much altitude so we can climb even higher. So it's a different deal for us. We're not on the ground waiting to take off. We've already taken off. Our deal is that we want to rebuild while we're in flight. Now that's complicated, and there's a lot more to deal with when you're doing that, and it can be kind of complex at times. But that's the difference. So you guys, in a traditional model, you're taking off from the runway at ground zero. At second story, we're looking to maintain altitude while replacing vital parts necessary to stay in the air. Does that make sense to you guys? Give me a thumbs up if it makes sense so I can see you. Okay. It's just a real different way of doing it. In the traditional model, that's the goal, man. We're taking off. The airplane has no altitude, but it's got a lot of funding and it's got a lot of fuel to burn for the takeoff, and it needs it. And so that's a really good thing. At second story, we're already in the air. So our airplane has some altitude, but it lacks the funding and the fuel to replace the vital parts that are going away. And by going away, I mean they actually literally are going away. We have a deadline right now that we're operating under by, we're looking at like maybe the end of August. I think we can fudge that a little bit, but end of August, where we lose certain parts, and certain parts of these that are falling off our airplane at that point are vital pieces for doing what we do. So that's the reason that we're doing this, you guys. Here's our solution to it. How are we going to deal with all that? Three-headed monster here, okay? Number one, when it comes to our airplane at second story, steady as she goes, all right? We want to maintain altitude and airspeed. What does that mean? That means we want our Sunday mornings to continue. We want to continue worshiping. We want to continue our kids' ministry. We want to continue outreach. We want to be a people that are living on mission and living out our discipleship. We want to be the church. And what's cool about this and so fun, and I think we've already started to see this even in the last couple of weeks, we have a chance to do this cleaner and sharper than we ever have. Decisions are being streamlined. We're able to operate much more functionally on the ground. It's a way different animal to be our own church than to be the location of another church. So that's the first thing I would say. Steady as she goes. We want to maintain our altitude and airspeed. We don't want to descend, at least not too much. Second part of this, Mayday, call for backup and seek out partnerships. Okay. What does that mean? Well, it means that right now we're in the process of setting up partnerships and having conversations and negotiations and all kinds of stuff with things like Converge. Some of you may know Converge as the Baptist General Conference, as it was known a number of years ago, but Converge is coming alongside of us, and they're investing in us, and they're helping us network and all that kind of stuff. In fact, just today, you guys, we're talking capital campaigns here, right? Just today, I stopped by the office and they wrote me a check. They wrote Second Story Church, our first check, for $15,000. So that's something that we can all celebrate, and there's more on the way from them as well. So they're coming alongside of us. We're looking at other partnerships we might be able to get involved with people like ARC, which is, I believe it stands for the Association of Reproducing Churches, or relational, I don't know. But the point is, we're looking at like people who can come alongside us and specifically me in the way of coaching. And I mean, yeah, I've done this before. I've planted a church before, but man alive, this is a different animal. And just like when you want to get in shape, the best thing you can do is hire a personal trainer, because they're going to hold you accountable and hold your feet to the fire. Same thing is true in coaching. So we're looking at stuff like that. We're having discussions with people who potentially could come alongside of us as parent churches, meaning that they invest money and they invest people to come alongside of us. They're going to dump some people into our airplane to help us do the work that needs to be done and help us purchase some of the parts that we need. I mean, that is awesome. So we're seeking out people who can add value, and churches that can add value, partnerships that can really help us get off to a good start. So the good news about that is that help is on the way. We are not in this alone, and we don't have to be in this alone. Kingdom work is work that Jesus never called any one church or any one individual to be in by themselves. Whenever Jesus sent anybody out to do anything in the Gospels, he always sent them out in partnerships. He always sent them out in pairs. And it's no different for us as churches. We don't want to be in isolation doing this by ourselves. That's the good news. Help is on the way. The bad news is these bridges and these partnerships really typically take a lot of time to build and can take months to develop in a normal situation. Now, our situation isn't normal. A lot of our stuff is being accelerated very, very rapidly. And this is where I just want to pause and give a huge hats off and a huge kudos, in particular to Jess and Tabby and Courtney and Jim and just everybody. I'm not trying to leave anybody out, but you guys, the team that we have to work with at Second Story is one of the biggest deciding factors that swayed me towards saying, let's go out and venture on our own. Because we have done, I'm being really real with you about this. We have done more work in the last, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks. We've done as much work in the last 4 to 6 weeks as I did planting Evergreen, my first church plant, in 6 months. And it's because I'm not doing it by myself. We've got people who are jumping in, we've got people who are helping out, and we've got some really creative, high-level leaders in this church that God has called to be a part of this. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that, because I know for sure and certain I can't do this alone. So I'm just really, really grateful for that. The fact that we're as far along as we are in any of this is a huge tip of the hat to our entire team. So that's a big deal. So steady as she goes, Mayday, call for backup and seek out partnerships. Third piece is what we're doing tonight. All hands on deck, 6-month capital campaign. What does that mean? It means, guys, everybody has to play a role. If you call Second Story your home, we're asking you to ask God what he would have you do as a part of getting this ministry stabilized in the air a little bit. So we're asking everybody who calls Second Story their home. And if you maybe there's someone who's watching online, or we've sent this recording to that, you're not a part of Second Story, you're invited to be a part of this too, okay? But we're wanting everyone to get in on this 6-month capital campaign aimed at installing the parts we need to take this airplane higher and farther than we ever have. And honestly, it's higher and farther than we ever even could have gone as the location church of another larger church. So that's our solution. Steady as she goes. Mayday, call for backup. All hands on deck. Let's make this thing happen. That's what we're here to pitch to you guys tonight and to talk with you a little bit about. Before we go too much farther in it, I'm going to ask Tabby to go ahead and unmute, and I'm just going to put a couple things up here. Oh, let me just say this. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. I know what I just said is complicated. Believe me, more than once, I've been like, okay, what needs to happen first? Where's the chicken and egg at in this whole situation? Absolutely. It can be done, but it's going to take you playing your part. And that might mean serving. It might mean giving, but it's going to take all of us kind of sacrificing to make this thing work. So with that being said, what I want to do is kind of turn this thing over, and Tabby, I hope this is okay. She hasn't seen this yet, but I want to turn this presentation over to Tabby and just let her talk a little bit about the numbers and the structure, and really specifically what we're asking of you guys.
Thanks, Pastor Seth. Hey guys, thanks for being here tonight. So you kind of get what we're talking about, right? But I want to share a little bit before I go any further. I want to share a little bit about why I believe in this and why I'm asking you to join us in this effort that we're in. Church matters and community matters. And we've seen that kind of over time or whatever, but I want to share a personal story because, I've gone to churches, and I'll say the church I went to before Second Story, I loved that church and it was a great church. It still is a great church. But I was there for 5 years and nobody really knew me, and nobody really knew what I was going through or what was happening in my life or whatever. I attended it. I was involved, like I volunteered, but nobody really like knew who I was and what was going on in my life. And one of the biggest things that I've experienced here at Free Grace United, now Second Story, is that people know me and I know them. And it makes a huge difference in your life. I will say that many of you know this, and I'm not going to hash out the whole story, but this past winter, I lost my stepmom to brain cancer. And I moved to Kansas City in January when they decided to stop treatment because it wasn't no longer effective. I moved there for 2 months to stay and help my family. And first of all, Pastor Seth was like, go do your family thing. Don't even worry about this. And I'm going to tell you guys, that seems like it should be common sense, but it's not common of every pastor. I'll just tell you that. But the next thing I want to say is that the week before my stepmom died, she kind of had taken a really bad turn. And I had gone away for like 2 days to visit Courtney, who was in Arizona at the time, just because I had been there for almost a month already. It was just tiring and exhausting and whatever. I went away for a couple of days. I ended up having to cut my trip short and come back to Kansas City because she was dying. And the day that I got there was one of the worst days of my life. That it was just a horrible, horrible day. And when I walked in my dad's house, he said to me, "Oh, there's a package for you." And so I'm like, "A package? Like, I don't get any packages. What is this?" And I go and I open it, and it's from you guys, from many of you that are on this call. And it's a package full of goodies, like awesome, like nail polish and coffee mugs and devotionals and a picture and just all this great stuff. And then a gift card. I think it was a Starbucks gift card, but it was like a gift card, like go do something for your family, go buy coffee, go get coffee for yourself, whatever you need to do. There was an awesome Chiefs luggage tag, which is definitely still on my luggage and will remain there forever. It made a difference on literally one of the worst days of my life. And that's what the church is. That's what I'm inviting you into. I'm not asking you to come and join us so we can do a really cool Sunday morning experience. I'm asking you to join us so that we can make a difference in people's lives, because that was a horrible, horrible time. And I'm someone with a very strong faith, but it was even shaky for me because it was so sad and so hard. And that's the opportunity we had at Second Story, to be there for other people on their worst days, to be there for other people when they're struggling and need prayer and need something and they don't even know what. Like, I didn't even know I needed that little package, but when I got it, it totally like, and my whole family was like, "Your church is amazing." And my brother, who doesn't attend church, was there and saw that. And it's like, this is what the church is. It's people taking care of people. And so when we're talking about money, it can get really like stuffy and it can get really kind of tough because nobody likes to give away money. At least I don't. I don't think you probably do either. It can get really hard, but I want us to keep in mind that we are here. We're asking this of you because we can change the story for people. We can make the story a little bit better. And we have that opportunity, and that's not going away anytime soon. So I just want to encourage you with that. That's my why. That's why I'm happy to give, because this church has made a difference in my life. I have a community here. I have people that are saying, "Hey, I'm praying for you when you're going through this really hard thing," or, "Hey, I just want to tell you I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this," or whatever. It makes a huge difference. And that's what you get to be a part of. That's what hopefully we can be a part of for you. And so that's why we're doing this, is to have that kind of a place for more people than just us. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but people are super lonely and people need friends. And they need friends that are going to push them closer to God, and friends that are going to brighten their mood on their very worst day. And so these are kinds of the things we get to be a part of. We get to share the hope of Jesus, and we get to share joy. And so what we are asking you to do is to join us for the next 6 months and give inconveniently. This capital campaign, we're not asking for your tithe. Your tithe belongs to the church. That is our cash flow. That's what helps us operate on a day-to-day basis. This is above that, and it can be difficult. We're not saying like, "Hey, can you give us $50,000 now?" If you want to, we're not going to stop you. All right, but we get it. We're in the same spot. This is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice for all of us that are going to make this pledge. And so here's our goal. We need to raise, in the next 6 months, we need to raise at minimum $25,000. I said 25,000 because we've got things that we have to buy. We're getting money from Converge, which is awesome. But we've got to buy a sound system. We have to buy speakers and microphones and cords. We have to buy equipment for our kids ministry. I don't, I don't want to bring a child to a church that doesn't have equipment so the kids can have a good time and be safe, right? Like we need to have things. It's just kind of the reality. And I mean, I know we all get it because we're the people on this call. We're the ones that are setting church up. We're the ones that are investing already. And so we get it. But that kind of stuff, you don't even really think about all the little things that we might have to do, or like, how about a computer or some type of system so we can check kids in and make sure they're leaving with the same adult they came with, safety issues, those kinds of things. All of that costs money. And if we're going to ask people to trust us, to come to our church and have a great experience and get to know God and get to know each other and leave their kids somewhere, we got to have the stuff to make it safe. And we've got to have the stuff to actually make it fun for the kids and whatever. So it's all these different pieces. So our sound system and that whole thing that we're going to do, and this, again, this is not like world-class sound. It's going to be good, but it's pretty dialed down. Okay. That alone is almost $25,000. And we've gotten multiple quotes. We're doing our due diligence. Jamie and Jacob and Jim and Courtney and Pastor Seth and Jess and I, we're all looking at multiple things. We're not just like, hey, first one we see, let's buy it, right? We're looking into it. We found we're doing some price comparisons, but that kind of stuff doesn't just like happen. Like, it's not like, oh, it's $100. Can you do that? Can you swing it? So alone, our sound equipment is about $25,000. We're looking to be at Bethel for the next 6 months. And hopefully we can be a little bit less portable, leave our stuff there, some stuff at least, but we don't have all of the answers on that. Well, if we're portable, if we have to move our stuff out, then guess what? We're going to need a trailer. We're going to have some stuff like that we got to figure out. We might need to buy carts, those beautiful black carts that we take up the elevator every week. We might need to buy those. And so minimum for sound and just the basic stuff that we do on a Sunday morning, it's a minimum of $25,000. And that's really not even actually covering it. So our minimum is raising that $25,000 over and above your regular giving. Again, it's not a tithe. Your tithe belongs to the church weekly. Okay. This is kind of a step of faith, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's hard for a lot of us to give more than we are. If you're already tithing to the church, you might be like, man, I don't even know if I could do anything more than my tithe. Well, I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. It doesn't have to be $5,000 above your tithe. It can be $10. It can be whatever. My goal here is that everyone that's on this call makes a faith promise or makes a pledge, regardless of the amount. Okay. Everything matters. Every little bit helps, but we do have to raise $25,000 at minimum over these next 6 months. So we're kind of having this soft launch season. And why are we doing that? For the exact reasons Pastor Seth has just talked about. A lot of churches, when they are planting, they ramp up for a year and they raise $100,000, $50,000 to $100,000. It's very common. That's basically what you need to start a church. So they do all of that and they take their time. Well, as you know, we're still a church and we don't want to stop our Sunday mornings, like Pastor Seth said. So these next 6 months is kind of a season of a soft launch for us, where we can start kind of buying these things that we need to buy, start to establish ourselves in the community. We want to be part of the community, start to market. I mean, we're not even talking, I haven't even brought up the idea of spending money on marketing, like printing flyers or invite cards or paying for some social media marketing or whatever it is we kind of decide to do. Whatever, we'll probably take multiple paths, but we're going to market. We want people in the neighborhood to know we're a church. If we ever want to do any kind of special event, all of that stuff takes money. Even our outreaches, it takes money. If we want to donate backpacks to, teachers or to students, that takes money. So we need this. And in these next 6 months, it's kind of like, let's see if we can get to this 25,000, or really honestly, let's see if we can go above it. And let's see if we can get that momentum going. And in the process, not only ramp up our giving, okay, because that's obviously what we're talking about tonight, but I want you guys to know our heart is that our church grows and that more people come to know Jesus in these next 6 months, and that people experience hope for the first time in the next 6 months, because they came to Second Story. And we can only do that if you're willing to partner with us. We will have like a grand opening date where we maybe talk more about like a long-term capital campaign. That's kind of just the reality at this point of a church and raising money, but that's a little bit on the horizon. We don't know dates for that. It's all kind of just there. What we're asking to think about and focus on right now is this next 6 months. What can you give over and above your normal giving? What can you give to help make Second Story a pillar in the community? To make it a place where people like me can come and be encouraged on their worst day. And I want to show you, Pastor Seth, I'm going to just take control of the screen for a second. This Sunday, we're going to be handing out what we call pledge cards. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. Looks like you have disabled the screen sharing.
Here,
if you can change that over.
I'll stop sharing real quick.
Perfect. It looks like it's maybe a setting, Seth. It's like it says you've disabled screen sharing.
I was worried about Scott. That was really what it.
Well, if we can't share it, it's okay. But essentially what we're going to do this Sunday is we're going to have these cards to hand out to everyone at church. And, that's the bulk of those people are on this call. And we're going to have these cards and we're going to give them to you. And we want you over the next couple of days to pray about what this looks like for you and for your family. And I'm asking you to pray about it. I'm not asking you to decide before you pray. Because when we do that, it's kind of like, well, I think I could give an extra 25 a month, but maybe God's just saying, hey, could you do 40? I don't know what the numbers are, and that's not the point, but we want you to pray about it, and then we'll hand out these cards on Sunday, and we're going to ask you to fill them out. I think that we actually haven't decided if we're going to collect them that day or if we'll kind of get them the next week, but I want you to be thinking about it. If you're married, talk to your spouse, be praying about it and see what God would have you do. And I will try to send these over to Seth so he can share them, because I do want you to see them because they are cool. And they really break it down, because what we're asking you to do is, what is a small sacrifice you can make in your life for the next 6 months? So we put some ideas on the card, like, can you sacrifice your morning coffee? Can you sacrifice your Starbucks run? Can you sacrifice your takeout on the weekends? Can you sacrifice putting off that home improvement project that you were going to do this fall? Can you just put that off for 6 more months and make a decision? And it's a radical, inconvenient decision, but can you make that decision to say, I'm going to trust God that when I go above and beyond what I've been doing, and as I sow into this, that he's going to give back to me. And he's a rewarder of those that sow into his kingdom and come alongside him and are partners with him. So I want to encourage you with that. If you have any questions on the finances, you can ask me, or ask probably better than me is Jim and Courtney. They've been helping me put together the budget and kind of getting everything squared away, but 25 is our minimum. And we'll see kind of where we can go from there.
Thank you, Ted. And you guys need to know, Jim and Courtney have worked real hard and been working really hard to put together a budget that makes sense so that we can do this thing in a way that not just keeps the doors open, but keeps us in a position of not just doing ministry, but thriving in it. And they've been putting in a lot of really detailed work. So I'm real appreciative of that. So that's the nuts and bolts of it, guys. What I want to do,
Pastor Seth, I sent you the card. I emailed you the card if you do want to show it.
Perfect. Let me, if we could, I'd like to show it at the end, because it'll be a nice way to sort of wrap up and sort of pray it out as we get going. What I want to do here, just for a minute, is talk to you about this question. And Tabby, you just did such a great job of talking about this, but for all of us, you guys, I think there's always this question when we're dealing with giving to the church, because the church is always asking for money, and the church just, they just should do a better job of handling the money they have. And just, I've heard I've heard it all. I want you to understand what you're giving to. And the only way I know how to do that is to share with you how I've made the decision about what I'm going to give to this campaign. So I'm just sort of asking the question, what are we really giving to? Are we asking you to, help us purchase cool equipment so we can have like this awesome website and amazing coffee while we listen to a professional band and a motivational speaker in a super chill atmosphere where people can just like come and check out Jesus in just a really chill way. We can have like a really conversation and people can just kind of relax on Sundays and we can be super cool and very vibey about the church. Here's what I want to share with you. Nothing of any of that is why I signed on to lead this adventure. There was a day when I was younger, when maybe I was a little bit more enamored with that stuff than I am today. I can tell you guys that the position I'm at right now in life, none of that stuff matters to me. None of it has anything to do with why I've decided to give what I'm giving to this campaign. Let me talk to you a little bit about my why. This is my why. For those of you who don't know, this is my daughter, Abby. Abby is 18 years old. She just graduated from Mounds View High School. She is in 3 weeks. She and I are getting on an airplane and heading to San Diego, California, where she's going to move in and be a freshman at University of San Diego. Beautiful school, beautiful city. She's going to be an English lit major. She just has her whole life ahead of her. And I couldn't be more proud of her in terms of just where she's at in life and some of the stuff that she's already kind of come through. It just kind of blows me away. On Monday evening, this past week, I got a phone call from Abby. It was a little bit before 10 o'clock. And if you've ever had a phone call from your kid when you knew right away they were in trouble and it's bad, I mean, this was that kind of a phone call. Abby called me up and she could barely breathe. She was hyperventilating. She was panicking. And she said, "Dad, I need you to come pick me up." I said, "Honey, what's going on?" She said, "I was in a car accident and it's real bad and I need you to come pick me up." So we talked it through. I figured out where she was. I mean, of course, instantly I jumped out of my seat. I was in the car and I was to her within 5 minutes. I kept her on the phone with me the entire time. As I came up to the scene where Abby was, this is what I saw. This picture was taken Monday night at 10:10 p.m. Now, this is not Abby's car. This is the car that hit her. Abby was going down the street and the young woman in this car kind of she didn't fully stop at a stop sign. She came out of a blind turn and she T-boned Abby. Now, Abby was in the car alone. And I will tell you, just so you don't get too scared here, everybody is fine. It's hard to believe when you look at that car, but everybody walked away from this accident just fine. The cars did their job and crumpled where they're supposed to, and airbags protected what they were supposed to protect. I mean, all the things worked the way they should have. And insurance will take it from here. And that's why you have insurance, right? But at the same time, you guys, it's 10 o'clock at night. I came up on this scene. There's 5 squad cars. There's a fire engine. There's an ambulance. There's police combing all over the place. There's a tow truck starting to weave its way in. And my daughter is standing in the middle of this stuff, shaking because she's so scared and feels alone and doesn't have any help or she doesn't know what to do. As soon as I got up to her, I gave her a big hug and she just crumpled in my arms. She was crying and she was losing her mind and she eventually got kind of settled down and she was okay. This is what I came up to in kind of the mindset. You know, in the middle of all this, I'm praying, right? God, what do you want me to give to this campaign? I mean, oofta magoofta, you know where finances are at right now, and this is rough. And you know, what are we going to do, and how are we going to figure this out? And it was just this little moment walking into this scene where God sort of tapped me on the shoulder and was like, do I have your attention now? Do you remember for 2 seconds, Reverend Heinrichs, what's really important in life right now? How fragile this is, how easily it goes away, how little time we really have on this earth, and how little time you have to not just impact like the world at large. I'm talking about your own kids, like how much time. It's crazy the perspective shift that a scene like this can give. Now, I walked away from this scene and just a couple of reflections here, like some realizations. Part of it was, Seth, what kind of time in life do you think you have to make an impact? Not just for the kingdom, but I'm talking about like on the people closest to you. When you're going about your daily business with the people closest to you, tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. You guys, what happened to Abby, it's not an uncommon thing. It could happen to any of us. Sometimes we lose sight of how thin of a thread we hold on to, and how fragile life really is. And so I started thinking to myself, when you think about giving and you think about what you want your life to be about, and you think about what you want to be involved with in your life and what you want to contribute to and what you want to be a part of, sometimes we get into this mindset of thinking like, I've got time, I'll do it next week, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next year, things will be better, I'll do it. What time do you think you have? None of it's promised to you. The other thing I started thinking about is what's worth building with your life? I mean, like in all seriousness, if you're gonna, if all of us get the same amount of days in the year, then like, what do you want your days to be about? What do you want them to build? What do you want them to stand for? How do you want other people to be impacted by that? Because whether you're intentional about it or not, the people in your life are going to be impacted by you. So why not be intentional about it and use the time that you have a little bit more purposefully? We talked a little bit, and I'm poking fun a little bit, but the whole idea of like, I just want to do, like I just want to have church and chill. I just want to like be really cool and vibey with Jesus. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, and this is true of Abby, and it's true of me. I've shared this with some of you. It's a real personal note, and I'm just going to be a little bit vulnerable here with you guys. Our family has been through some stuff. I've been through some stuff. Abby's been through some stuff. When it comes to this whole idea of what does it mean to me to not just impact my kids, but be a part of making disciples in a church where other people can not just impact their kids, but can actually like become the kind of people that Jesus has called us to be, so that we can be the salt and the light in the world that he's called us to be. Like, I'm sorry, I'm at a point where I've been through too much and I've come through too much. I'm going to be 48 years old this fall. I know that's not super old, but it's old enough where I can tell you guys in all seriousness, I am all out of chill. I'm completely out of it. I have no more time to dink around with stuff, and like, it's time to get serious and purposeful and do it now. And it gave me this sort of, perspective of, listen, am I gonna, even when it came to the idea of like being a senior pastor, or should we just stay Free Grace United and all that kind of stuff? It really became a question for me of, am I gonna sit on the sidelines while politics and culture and entertainment and social media and woke YouTubers offer all kinds of vision and solutions to save people from things they have no hope of saving? And listen, Abby's in a generation, like a lot of kids, where that stuff is real influential. It's real intentional about the way it's impacting people and forming culture and all that kind of stuff. So am I going to be cool with just sitting on the sidelines while my kids and the people closest to me and the people who are who I love and who I care about get farther and farther and farther away from Jesus because of the complications that get laid on us in life? Or am I going to get off my butt and do something about it? What would it be worth to me? These are questions, you guys, I ask myself. I'm not yelling at y'all. I'm asking myself these questions. What would it be worth to you, Reverend Heinrichs, to be a part of a church that's real about standing with people at the scene of the wreck that their lives have become? In the middle of those moments where our Father was the only one standing with us and the only one who came to save us, what would it be worth to be a part of a church and lead a church that's real about that stuff, that brings people safely back into the airplane? Even if it's been rebuilt, even if it's tough to rebuild it, even if it's complicated, what would it be worth to you to have an airplane that's dead serious about its mission like that? I'm not talking about don't get me wrong, I want church to be fun. I want it to be a non-threatening environment. You guys all know my heart on that. What I'm just sort of saying is I'm out of time in my life. This accident this week was it was a little reminder to me, or a big one, of I have no more time to sit around and pretend that this stuff is just something we do on the weekends or whatever. I tend to think that Santana got it right back in the 1980s, with regards to the heart of Jesus, when he wrote that song that, like, give me your heart and make it real, or just forget about it. It's time to do it. Step into your calling, step into your purpose, be the man, be the woman that God has called you to be. Relate to the people that he's called you to relate to. My God, get off your butt and do it. Because we don't have time. I don't have time to do this anymore. We gotta get serious about this. These are the context. I mean, I'm telling you guys, if you don't want God to talk to you in dramatic ways, do not go into ministry, because that's what he does. So where I came to in my own commitment to this thing is just sort of telling God, listen, I'm all in. What do you need, and where is it landing for me? Now, I will tell you that the number that I've landed on, that I've already decided that I'm going to commit to in this thing, is it going to take sacrifice on my part and a lot of faith that God is going to provide in the middle of it? 100% yes. 100% it's going to be something that I'm going to have to be real intentional about how I manage my finances around. Yeah. Can I afford to do it? I think a better question is, can I afford not to? When you think about what's a life worth to you? Can you afford not to? Like, if I were to take Abby's picture out of this slide that you guys are seeing right now, and I were to put in a slide of someone who's close to you, and I said that your time with them is real limited. It's real limited. And you're going to have to make some big decisions about how you're going to spend it, and what you're going to stand for, and how you're going to relate to this person, and what you want them remembering when you're gone or when they're gone. Who would that person be for you in this picture? I want you to visually see them there and ask yourself, can you afford to not be a part of this? I've decided for me that I can't. That's my why. The question for you is, what's your why? I'm real grateful that Abby is okay, and that she has, she got a couple bumps and bruises, but she's doing okay. But it was just a real important reminder, you guys, to me, of what would it be like if we could actually get going on a church that's not just serious about its mission, but that's serious about your mission in your life to the people in your world and your ability to impact them. They need you. The culture wants to claim it for them. Politics is offering all kinds of solutions, and depending on what side of the aisle you sit on, there's all kinds of different solutions, and people have different ideas. By the way, historically, none of them have ever worked. I'm just saying. I teach in the public schools, and the public schools will tell you they have a solution. You guys, There is only one hope. I don't know how people do it without Jesus. I don't. And it makes sense to me sometimes that people despair as much as they do, because without Jesus, there isn't I mean, Jesus literally said, without me, you can do nothing. You can do nothing. I don't think he meant you can do some things. I think he meant that he's the only hope. He's the only solution. It's the only thing that works. So for me, the reason I'm all in is because I want to give to a church and be a church and lead a church that has the ability and intentionality and mission mindset and purposefulness to go out and take people like myself or like Abby or people who have been through, you know what, some really tough crap in life, and say, you know what, we just want you to know that Jesus loves you, and that no matter what kind of wreck you find your life in, there's still hope and your Father's still standing with you. That's it. That's my why. So am I going to have to sacrifice some things? Yeah, I am. I was going to buy a new snowblower this year for my house. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I'm going to cut back on a couple of other things as well. I mean, it's just kind of, who cares? I'll shovel snow. If lives are changed, who cares? I can shovel for a year and put the snowblower off. I'm going to be all right. I can get my snowblower to limp along one more year. It's more important to me that this gets done. So that's my why, guys. That is our presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and kind of bring it back. And at this point, I want to open it up to you guys. If anybody has any questions, we've been meeting for a little under an hour here, so I know that's a little bit of time, but if anybody has any questions, I'm going to stay on the call. And maybe Tabby and Jess, I would ask the two of you to stay on as well, just to help answer some questions. Tabby, I know you said that you shared the...
I emailed it to you at your second story email.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and pull that up real quick. There it is. Oh, perfect. But while I'm pulling that up, let me go ahead and ask, does anybody have any questions, any comments, any thoughts that they'd like to share? Maybe a little bit about kind of what we're doing and what this is all about and all that kind of stuff.
I just want to say real quick, I think I'm going to take this Sunday off because that was a really good sermon.
Thank
you. I have a kind of a question. The money that we're giving to Free Grace United now, is any of that's to St. Paul coming to Second Story?
Really good question, Jeremiah. Really good question. So let me, sorry, I'm just managing my screens here while I'm loading up stuff. So a couple things. The first is that Free Grace United, through the month of August, is continuing to pay our bills, provide us with equipment, all of that kind of stuff. In other words, we've changed the name and we're moving ahead, but they've said, hey, we're going to cover you at least through August. And there may be some wiggle room there as well if we just can't make turnaround times happen in time or whatever. And a lot of that, Jeremiah, goes to the overhead that already exists. So, I mean, in other words, they're paying our rent this month. They're paying my salary this month, things like that. So Free Grace United is continuing to get our tithes and offerings this month. As of September, that changes where Second Story money stays at Second Story. But right now, our tithes and offerings are functioning the way they always have, so that our operations can continue the way that they have been.
Is there a way to move that over easier without having to, trying to finagle the system per se.
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by move it over.
So if we're already giving through Free Grace United, and by the end of September,
Mhm.
right? So we want to say, for instance, switch it over. Is there going to be a way to do that easier instead of trying to log in and?
Yes. Yeah, there is. We're in the, I mean, right now, I mean, as of this minute, we actually don't even have a bank account yet. That's going to change tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, all of those things are in the process, Jeremiah, and the financial mechanisms, it may be the way is the way to say it, in the financial structure is something that we're piecing together, and that includes putting together the budget, establishing, how's giving going to work on Sundays and all that kind of, how can we make it so people can give online, all of that kind of stuff. It's all in the works and it's all coming. Again, it just takes time to set up. Maybe Tabby, that might be something you want to speak to as well.
Yeah, I can. And I'm going to say I apologize for the noise in the background because I have 2 toddlers and 2 dogs right behind me, which you can't see. We are going to be working with a platform called Tithely, and we're going to be setting that up next week. So starting next week, there will be a mechanism for people to give to Second Story. Now, having said that, because Free Grace United is paying our bills for the month of August only, so that's like 3 more weeks they're paying it. The money that we're giving to them is still going to our church. It's like Pastor Seth said, but we will have that set up by next week, where you could go to a specific URL and you can give to Second Story. And so that's kind of how, at this point, I think that's kind of the plan for collecting the money that we're gonna pledge. So that would be, I think, and Pastor Seth, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think what we said is we would encourage continue giving as you have been through August to Free Grace United, because again, that money is our cash flow for this month. But when it comes to your pledges, those can go directly to Second Story, and we'll give specific details. Like once the site is set up, we can do something, either a handout or something like that to help everyone, know, because it is a little confusing and stuff with all of that kind of, back and forth can be a little hard. But yes, continue to do what you've been doing. And when it comes to giving your pledge, we'll do that on our Second Story platform.
Perfect. Thank you. That just all I had to ask. So thank you.
It's a good question, Jeremiah. It is.
Can I say something super quick? And apologize if you hear the stupid dog in the background. But that'll also make it easier, Jeremiah, once we get our website up and running. We're still in the process of getting that going. But that's another place that at some point very soon we'll have on our website where you can give directly through that website, through our website. So, right, Seth? Right?
Yep. Yeah, no, again, it's it's part of building the airplane in flight. It's all on the way. And the website will be part of that. And that's, what Tabby mentioned as well about Tithely. It ties into our website and gives us an online giving platform as well. So super convenient. Yeah. I can give you guys a little, let me see if I can give you a sneak peek here. I was able to get Tabby's email. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to pull up right here. Can you guys see my screen? Should be able to see it. This is our pledge card that you guys will see on Sunday. And again, it outlines, what that big goal is, that the minimum of $25,000 over the course of the next 6 months. And for the next 6 months, we're asking you to sacrifice your morning coffee, your weekend takeout, your home improvement project, snowblower, or whatever it is, and help us change the story for someone else. And it just gives you a little opportunity to fill that out or to make a one-time gift. I mean, I will tell you guys, because of remember what we talked about, being an airplane that's taking off versus one that's already in the air. I mean, the reality is, and I just had this conversation with the people at Converge today as well, the more money we can get upfront in this campaign, the better. If people have the means and are able to do so, I would encourage people to give as much of that upfront as they can. In my case, it's going to be monthly installments, like pretty much the rest of my life, but that's okay because we're going to get there. That's just kind of a little bit of that. Tabby, anything you wanted to add about the card?
No, it's just we wanted to break it down in a simple and understandable way for you and help you see that even something small, like, I mean, to be honest, I spend about double $25 a month at Starbucks, but that's my own problem. But you know, even something small that you could sacrifice can make a difference. It doesn't have to be like, well, I'd love to help, but I don't have 50 grand to just drop in. Well, can you give up your coffee or whatever your indulgence of choice is? So yeah, that's what we're asking for you.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions, guys, before we wrap it up in prayer tonight? Well, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your weeks to do this and to be a part of this journey. You know, guys, real honestly, when we kind of went for it on the second story front, we didn't totally know, you know, how is this going to go? How are people going to respond? I mean, we thought we had an idea, but the response from all of you has been so overwhelming. It's been so positive. And I'm just really, really humbled by how many people are taking part in this and coming alongside of us. And the fact that we're even growing during this sort of season of soft launch, it's ridiculous that doesn't happen. And yet it is happening with us. And so just remember what your why is while you're praying and asking God about what to pledge to that. And if you don't know what your why is, ask him to show it to you. And be careful what you ask for. He will always answer. Okay, let me say a prayer and then we'll shut it down for the evening. Jesus, thank you so much for this church and for new beginnings and for fresh starts and for second stories. And I pray that each of us would be able to take careful consideration and pay close attention to the accounting, not only in our wallets and our pocketbooks and our bank accounts as we pray about and think about our commitment, but that we'd also pay close attention in accounting and in the accounting of and the bookkeeping of the relationships that we have with people in our lives. Remind us, Jesus, that this life we have is so fragile and that we have so little time to really impact the people closest to us, that it's so important, not just for our own sakes, but for theirs, that we become the church and we become the people that you've called us to be. So keep those faces in front of our minds so that we can sign those checks and send those gifts, not just as people obligated, but people who do so joyfully and willfully, knowing that there is nothing more important in life than someone who can find hope and rest and peace and healing and joy and strength in you, no matter what kind of wreck they've been in their lives. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks, you guys. This is great. Let's get it done.
Let's do it.
All right. Have a good night, you guys.
Well
Thanks,
done.
everybody.
Thank you all. Thanks, Seth.
Have a great night, everyone.